I used to think betrayal came with sirens, some kind of warning system that would alert you when your life was about to collapse. But it doesn't. It comes quietly, in the space between what someone says and what they mean, in the pause before they answer your question, in the way they suddenly start working late every night. It comes when you're too tired to notice because you've been sleeping in hospital chairs for 3 weeks. Sarah always said she married me because I was reliable. "You're the kind of man who shows up," she'd tell her friends at dinner parties, her hand resting on my shoulder. I used to think it was a compliment. Now I wonder if she meant I was predictable, safe, boring. The irony isn't lost on me that my reliability is exactly what gave her the freedom to destroy us. Let me start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end. It was a Tuesday in March when my sister called. I remember because Sarah was in the kitchen making her protein smoothie, the blender drowning out the first few seconds of Kate's voice. "David, I need you to come. The doctors, they found something." Kate had always been the strong one. 7 years older, she'd practically raised me after Dad left. She was the one who taught me to drive, who talked me through my first heartbreak, who walked me down the aisle at my wedding because we couldn't afford both parents to fly in. The idea of her needing me felt foreign and terrifying. "What kind of something?" I asked, stepping into the hallway. "Pancreatic, stage 3. The words hit like a physical blow. I must have made a sound because Sarah turned off the blender and looked at me with concern. Real concern, I thought then. The kind that made me fall in love with her 8 years ago. "I'll be there tomorrow," I told Kate. "You don't have to. I'm coming." Sarah drove me to the airport. She held my hand in the car, squeezed it when I couldn't find words. "Take as long as you need," she said. "I'll handle everything here." I believed her. God help me, I believed her. The first month was the hardest. Kate lived 4 hours away in Portland, and the treatment schedule was brutal. Chemo every other day, radiation twice a week. She'd always been independent, but the cancer stripped that away piece by piece. I watched my sister, who used to run marathons, struggle to walk to the bathroom. I called Sarah every night from the hospital. Those first few weeks, she sounded like herself, tired from work, but supportive. She'd tell me about her day, ask about Kate's progress, remind me to eat something besides vending machine food. "How are you holding up?" she'd ask. "I'm okay, just tired." "You're doing the right thing, David. Kate needs you." Sarah worked in project management for a tech startup. She'd always been good with people, the kind of person who could smooth over conflicts and motivate teams. It's what I'd found attractive about her when we met at a conference. Her confidence, the way she commanded a room. She was everything I wasn't: outgoing, ambitious, comfortable with risk. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to how easily she managed people, how smoothly she could make them believe exactly what she wanted them to believe. The changes started small. Sarah began taking longer to return my calls. When she did pick up, she sounded distracted, like she was multitasking, which she probably was. Her company had landed a major client, and she was leading the project. "It's crazy here," she'd say. "We're working around the clock to get this launch ready." I understood. I'd been away for 6 weeks by then, and she was handling everything alone. The mortgage, the bills, her demanding job. I felt guilty for not being there to help. "Maybe I should come home for a few days," I suggested one evening. Kate was having a good day, sitting up in bed and actually eating the soup I'd brought her. "No," Sarah said quickly. "I mean, don't feel like you need to rush back. Kate needs you more than I do right now." There was something in her tone, but I couldn't place it. Relief? Eagerness? I was too exhausted to analyze it properly. "Are you sure?" "Positive. Focus on Kate. I've got everything under control here." Control, that word would haunt me later. Kate's condition stabilized in the second month. The tumor hadn't shrunk, but it hadn't grown either. The doctors called it a victory. She was able to move to outpatient treatment, which meant I could finally sleep in a real bed instead of the hospital chair that had been destroying my back. I rented a small apartment near the medical center. Kate insisted on contributing to the rent, even though her savings were disappearing faster than morning fog. "You've already given up too much," she said. I hadn't thought of it as giving up anything. This was family. This was what you did. But the isolation was getting to me. Portland was beautiful, but I didn't know anyone besides Kate. My days revolved around treatment schedules, insurance calls, and grocery runs. I missed my routine, my gym, my life. I missed Sarah. Our conversations became shorter, more functional. She'd ask about Kate's numbers. I'd have her the update. She'd mention work stress. I'd offer sympathy. We were like two people reading from a script, hitting all the right notes but missing the music. I love you, I'd say at the end of each call. Love you too, she'd reply, but it sounded automatic, like she was signing off on an email. The first real warning sign came during week 9. I'd called Sarah around 7 p.m. her time, which was usually when she was making dinner or watching TV. She didn't answer. I tried again an hour later. Nothing. Finally, around 11, she texted, "Sorry, working late, we'll call tomorrow." It happened again 3 days later, then again the following week. Always the same explanation. Work emergency, big deadline, sorry. I started calling at different times, trying to catch her during lunch or in the morning before work. She was never available. When we did connect, she sounded breathless, like she'd been running. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just stressed about this project. You know how it is." I didn't, actually. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never known Sarah to be completely unreachable for hours at a time. She was compulsive about checking her phone, even during movies. But I was 3,000 miles away, sleeping 4 hours a night, and second-guessing everything. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe this was just what happened when life got complicated. Kate noticed I was distracted during her appointment that Tuesday. We were sitting in the waiting room, surrounded by the familiar smell of disinfectant and anxiety, when she asked, "How are things with Sarah?" "Fine," I said automatically. "David." Kate had a way of saying my name that could cut through any bullshit. Even cancer couldn't take that away from her. "I don't know," I admitted. "Something feels off, but I can't put my finger on it." "Off how?" I told her about the missed calls, the short conversations, the way Sarah seemed relieved when I said I'd be staying longer. Kate listened without interrupting, her face thoughtful. "When's the last time you talked to her friends? Or your neighbors?" "I don't know. Why?" "Just wondering what's happening in your actual life while you're here." The question bothered me more than it should have. What was happening in my actual life? I'd been so focused on Kate's crisis that I'd stopped paying attention to everything else. For all I knew, our house could have burned down and I wouldn't have noticed unless Sarah mentioned it. That night, I called our neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She was always outside gardening, keeping an eye on the neighborhood with the dedication of a security guard. "David, how's your sister?" "Getting better, thank you for asking. I was just wondering, have you seen Sarah around much?" "Oh yes, she's been very busy, always coming and going at odd hours. I assumed it was work." "Odd hours?" "Well, she leaves early in the morning, sometimes comes home for lunch, then goes out again in the evening. Last weekend, she was gone all day Saturday and Sunday. But you know how demanding those corporate jobs can be." I didn't know. Sarah had never worked weekends in the entire time I'd known her. She was religious about her work-life balance, always saying that successful people knew how to unplug. "Has she had any visitors?" "Not that I've seen, although I don't watch the house constantly, you know." But she did. Mrs. Chen watched that house like it was her job. I couldn't sleep that night. Every innocent explanation I came up with felt forced. Maybe the new project really was that demanding. Maybe she was going to the office on weekends. Maybe she was working from coffee shops to get out of the empty house. Maybe I was losing my mind. At 3 a.m., I did something I'd never done before. I logged into our cell phone account online. Sarah and I had always been open about everything. Shared passwords, joint accounts, complete transparency. She'd never given me a reason to doubt her. The phone records loaded slowly on the hospital's Wi-Fi. When they finally appeared, my stomach dropped. Hundreds of text messages, dozens of phone calls, all to the same number, every single day, sometimes for hours at a time. The pattern was clear. The call started the day after I left for Portland. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I grabbed my phone and called the number. It went straight to voicemail. A man's voice, confident and smooth. "You've reached Marcus. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you." Marcus. I'd never heard Sarah mention anyone named Marcus. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I became a detective in my own marriage. I started paying attention to things I'd never noticed before. The background noise during our calls, the way she phrased certain responses, the timing of when she was available to talk. The pieces came together slowly, then all at once. Sarah had been going out for lunch every day, but she'd never mentioned eating anywhere specific. She'd been working late constantly, but couldn't provide details about the projects when I asked. She'd been tired and stressed, but also happier somehow, more energetic than she'd been in years. I called her office, pretending to be looking for her about a family emergency. The receptionist was apologetic. "I'm sorry, but Sarah's been working from home for the past month. Would you like me to transfer you to her mobile?" Working from home for a month while telling me she was at the office constantly. The lies were unraveling, but I needed to be sure. I needed to see it for myself. I told Kate I had to go back to Seattle for a few days to handle some business. She was doing well enough that I could leave her with her neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd been helping with groceries and rides to treatment. "You don't have to explain yourself to me," Kate said. "Just be careful." Careful of what? Whatever you're about to find out. She knew. Without me saying a word, she knew. The flight home felt endless. I kept imagining different scenarios, each one worse than the last. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe Marcus was a coworker, and the calls were about the project. Maybe Sarah was planning a surprise for my return, and that's why she'd been secretive. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to walk into my house and find my wife exactly as I'd left her. Instead, I walked into my house and found my wife exactly as she'd become. I got home around 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Sarah's car was in the driveway, which surprised me since she'd told me the night before that she'd be in meetings all day. I used my key quietly, not wanting to startle her if she was on a work call. The house was silent. I called out her name as I climbed the stairs, but there was no response. Our bedroom door was closed, which was unusual for the middle of the day. I opened it without knocking. They were asleep. Sarah and a man I'd never seen before, naked and tangled in the sheets I'd bought for our 5th anniversary. The same sheets where Sarah and I had made love the night before I left for Portland. I stood there for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. The man was younger than me, maybe early 30s, with the kind of carefully maintained stubble that required daily attention. He had his arm around Sarah's waist, possessive even in sleep. Sarah looked peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was spread across the pillow, and she had a small smile on her face. She looked like she was having a good dream. I backed out of the room and closed the door softly. Then I went downstairs and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee maker that still had our wedding photo stuck to it with a magnet. 20 minutes later, I heard movement upstairs. Voices. The shower running. I sat there and waited. Sarah came down first, wearing her robe and looking like she'd seen a ghost, which I suppose she had. "David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're home." "Surprise, hope what?" She stood in the doorway, frozen. "I thought you weren't coming back until Sunday." Plans changed. We stared at each other across the kitchen. The man, Marcus, I assumed, was still upstairs, probably getting dressed and planning his escape route. "How long?" I asked. "David, I can explain." "How long, Sarah?" She sat down across from me, her hands shaking. 2 months. 2 months. While I'd been sleeping in hospital chairs and watching my sister fight for her life, Sarah had been building a new life with someone else. "Is he from work?" "No, we met at the gym." The gym, of course. Sarah had joined a new fitness class right before I left. She'd been so excited about it, said it was exactly what she needed to stay motivated while I was gone. "Do you love him?" The question surprised us both. I hadn't planned to ask it, but there it was, hanging in the air between us. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know." "Do you love me?" "Yes. No, I don't know anymore." Honesty, finally. It hurt worse than any lie she could have told. Marcus left through the back door like a thief. I watched him from the kitchen window, running across our yard in his wrinkled clothes. He looked exactly like the kind of man who would sleep with someone else's wife while her husband was caring for a dying sister. Sarah and I sat in our living room, the same room where we'd opened wedding gifts and planned our future. She tried to explain, but her words felt hollow. I was lonely, she said. You were gone, and I didn't know how to handle it. Marcus was there, and he listened to me. I called you every day. I know, but it wasn't the same. You were focused on Kate, which I understand, but I felt like I was disappearing, like I didn't matter. So you decided to fuck someone else in our bed? She flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I don't know. I thought maybe you'd come home and we'd work through it together. I thought maybe I could end it before you got back. But you didn't want to end it. No, she whispered. I didn't. We talked for 3 hours. Sarah cried, apologized, begged for forgiveness. She said she'd made a mistake, that she was confused, that she'd been thinking about us while I was gone and realized we'd been drifting apart for years. We're like roommates, David. We have been for a long time. Maybe she was right. Maybe we had been coasting, going through the motions of marriage without really being married. Maybe I had been taking her for granted, assuming she'd always be there while I focused on work, on Kate, on everything except us. But maybe that was just what she told herself to justify what she'd done. I want to try, she said. I want to fix this. With him in the picture, I'll end it. Today, right now. She picked up her phone and called Marcus. I listened to her break up with him, her voice shaking but determined. He argued, said he loved her, that she was making a mistake. She hung up on him and, there, she said, it's over. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that love could survive betrayal, that marriages could be rebuilt after trust was shattered. I wanted to believe that the woman I'd married was still somewhere inside the stranger sitting across from me, but I couldn't stop thinking about how peaceful she'd looked in his arms. I went back to Portland the next day. Kate took one look at me and knew everything. She cheated, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know. Kate was quiet for a long time. Then she said, when I was first diagnosed, I kept thinking about all the things I'd never done, places I'd never been, experiences I'd missed. But you know what I regretted most? What? Staying with Tom for 3 years after I knew it was over. I wasted 3 years of my life trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. Tom had been Kate's ex-husband, a man who'd left her for his secretary in the most cliché way possible. The divorce had been brutal, but Kate had emerged stronger. This is different, I said. What? Sarah called me every day for the next week. She was going to therapy, she said. She was reading books about infidelity and marriage recovery. She was doing everything right, checking all the boxes for the grieving spouse. But when I closed my eyes, I still saw her sleeping peacefully in another man's arms. Kate's health took a turn for the worse during my second week back. The latest scans showed new growth, and the doctors wanted to try a more aggressive treatment. I threw myself into research, consultations, second opinions. It was easier than thinking about Sarah. You're avoiding the decision, Kate said one evening as I read medical journals on my laptop. I'm trying to save your life, and I'm trying to save yours. She was right. I was hiding in Portland, using Kate's illness as an excuse to avoid dealing with my marriage. It wasn't fair to either of us. What would you do? I asked. I'd remember that forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. I called Sarah that night and told her I wanted a divorce. Please, she said, don't decide now. You're grieving, you're stressed. Come home and let's work through this together. I am home, I said. I'm where I need to be. David, I made a mistake. One mistake. Don't throw away 8 years of marriage because of one mistake. It wasn't one mistake, Sarah. It was 100 small choices over 2 months. Every time you answered his call instead of mine. Every time you lied about where you were. Every time you let him touch you in our bed. She was crying now, but I felt strangely calm. I love you, she said. I know, I love you too, but love isn't enough anymore. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Sarah kept the house. I didn't want it anymore. She got Marcus back too, though from what I heard through mutual friends, it didn't last long. Apparently, he wasn't interested in being with someone who was actually available. Kate's treatment worked. The tumor shrank and she went into remission. She moved to Seattle to be closer to me, joking that she needed to keep an eye on me now that I was a bachelor again. You seem happier, she said one evening as we shared takeout in my new apartment. Do I? Yeah, lighter somehow. Maybe she was right. Maybe betrayal had done me a favor, freeing me from a marriage that was already over without me realizing it. Maybe Sarah sleeping with Marcus was just a final confirmation of what we'd both known, but been too afraid to admit. Or maybe I was just tired of carrying the weight of someone else's choices. I think about that Thursday afternoon sometimes. The moment I opened the bedroom door and saw my wife in another man's arms. People always ask if I wish I'd done something different, confronted them immediately, thrown him out, made a scene. But I'm glad I did it the way I did. I'm glad I sat in my kitchen and waited, processing what I'd seen before reacting. I'm glad I didn't give Sarah the chance to lie her way out of it or make me the villain in her story. I'm glad I saw her sleeping peacefully because it told me everything I needed to know about where her heart really was. Betrayal doesn't come with sirens. It comes quietly in the space between what someone says and what they do, in the pause before they answer your question, in the way they build a new life while you're trying to save someone else's. It comes when you're too tired to notice until suddenly you're not, and then you have to decide what to do with the rest of your life. I chose to live it,